G'day, I'm Mitch, and look, it's not what you think. This time we're making objective markers for competitive play in Age of Sigmar. So I talked about this off my playing in my first ever tournament, a video that's on the channel, and you can go and check it out. There'll be a link somewhere up here. One of the guys I was playing had 12-inch diameter discs. So in Age of Sigmar, you have a certain number of objective markers as you play, and if you have a unit within 6 inches of the center of that point, you can claim it and contest it and so on. And these markers that he had sped up the game in a way that I wasn't even aware was possible. So instead of having to measure constantly throughout a game to check if something's in or out, walks onto the disc and it's in. And I thought this was such a really cool idea. And his were purchased ones, and I'm a huge fan of trying to make stuff myself for two reasons. One, I enjoy the process, and two, all the times it comes out cheaper. So I went looking for an option. How could I do this? And my first thought was to find polypropylene, which is a lot stiffer than what I ended up with here, and can still be cut with a knife. And the thing was that that's almost impossible to find here in Canberra, and the company I contacted online didn't want to talk to me about selling me a sheet. They didn't respond to an email, so I just left it at that. And a trip to Bunnings for a different project and a different attempt at something, found in the flooring section 0.6 of a mil PVC. So it's flexible, it's thin enough that it's not really going to be a problem, and it was wide enough at 135 or whatever this was centimeters across that I can do 8 discs out of about 0.7 of a meter here. So comes in a roll that long, and then I got about 0.7, and that gives me enough space to do 8 plus some wiggle room so that I don't have to worry about how this cuts. First step obviously was to make some kind of a cutting template. So I quickly discovered that the cheap and old compass that I have doesn't go to 6 inches wide. It comes just short. So what I ended up doing was making out of a strip of old card. This is actually the front of a calendar. A little jig almost that'll let me do circles of 6 inches in diameter. The first run I took at the jig ended up being 12 inches, which was a silly mistake. So obviously you want to make something that's 6 inches from the center point so that it'll be 12 in diameter. So 6 inch radius, folks. Really important, bringing back that high school geometry. Most important thing here was using a set square. That meant that I could use the straight edge on the piece of card that was already there from manufacture to actually get the lines to be straight. Then I ended up using a protractor. It wasn't useful for anything else at this point because it wasn't big enough to punch the holes through. And that hole was going to be so that a pin could pass through and kind of hold it in place as I did the circle drawing. So I put a pin in the center point and a Sharpie in the end, and it should turn, and hopefully it doesn't stick on this too much. So we'll see how that goes. The trick I'm going to aim for here is to leave myself a little bit of wiggle room. And I happen to, in a mistake I made one 12 inches across, which actually is useful because it lets me figure out how wide something needs to be before I do anything with it. So as you can see, it comes to here, which gives me a bit of wiggle. So let's see if this works. So I'm just going to take a pin. I'm only going to need one, so I'm going to put these away. Pin in the center hole. So I'm not super happy with the first hole. I think I just need to do some jigging to my template. It's not quite the right width. So this is methylated spirit. It's just a type of alcohol. It's used for, I use it camping as part of a little outdoor camp stove. So what you can do, if it's not working the way you'd like it to, just grab a little bit of some form of an alcohol, and hand sanitizer will work. I wouldn't recommend it because you'll waste it, but if you've got like alcohol wipes for cleaning down surfaces, this will do the job as well. Just get a little bit and it'll take permanent marker straight off, which gives you a nice clean surface to work off. Oh, okay. I have some discs drawn. It's very faint. And I've cut them into kind of separate sheets just to make them a little bit easier to work with. My big thing at the moment is that I'm not sure if the PVC is going to contract a little bit when it's trimmed, so I'm just going to try and trim them up with a little bit of an edge and then take them in from there if they do shrink. Then I'll have some room to play with. And the other thing is that I have no idea if I can cut them with scissors, which would make this a lot easier. So I'm going to try that as well. And there we go. That is a disc that is flexible and is the mythical 6 inches. So, and I've got to cut out 7 more. So while I cut this out, it's worth talking about the price. So this piece of kind of vinyl PVC, it's called tablecloth actually, so obviously designed as a tablecloth cover, cost me $16.30 Australian. It's about $26 a meter, and I bought a grand total of 0.7 of a meter of 137 centimeter wide roll. And that gave me enough obviously to cut out the 8 discs that I need, because 8 being kind of the maximum at the moment with Scorched Earth. And I think there might be one more mission that needs 8 objectives. But yeah, for match play, you need a total of 8, so I can get 8 out of this with, you know, room to wiggle. I probably could have used less, but I liked a bit of wiggle room while I was to cut this with, right? And that's it. That's the only spend here. Obviously, you're going to need a permanent marker of some description. Mine are small ones that came in a coloured set, so, you know, a couple of bucks for a permanent marker. And you need some scrap cardboard, which your recycling bin or an office recycling bin, or, you know, anywhere is you're going to find something that you can use potentially for it, right? And then on top of that, you need something to cut it with, so a decent pair of scissors, granted. You could also do it with a hobby knife or something like that, and that's it. So as a comparison, when I started looking for an option for these for buying, I found MDF laser cut versions at like 40 Australian for 2, which was exorbitant to say the least. And then I found Some plastic ones kind of running in the 50 Great British pounds. So kind of $100 Australian would be the cost to get them here without shipping, I think roughly. And that's a price that I just can't justify. As much as I think they're really useful, I don't think that I would get away with ordering that. That'd be a unhappy girlfriend if I purchased something like that. So that's your option, folks. I will put a link to this. Hopefully I can find a link on Bunnings website. So if you're interested and you're in Australia and you want to do this yourself, you can. That's it. $16 rather than, you know, at least 100, folks. All cut out, and I've cleaned off the marking line that I put on the edge with a little bit of methylated spirit. So I think these just need kind of an edge, and I want to make the center a little bit clearer. So with the thicker permanent marker, I'm going to attempt to mark out the edge and that center point. And that's it. 8 discs with a nice black rim on them, which looks surprisingly good given that I was dragging the pen around the outside edge. And I think Hey folks, Future Mitch here, and look, I left out a pretty important detail, and one that I thought I could do without when I was actually making the objective markers, and that's the inner 3-inch disc, which is needed for surprisingly quite a few missions in Age of Sigmar that I discovered after starting to use them to play, and well after I'd finished this. So, my first attempt at trying to get that inner disc in was the old Warhammer 40k blast marker, and I was super hopeful that this was actually 6 inches diameter and I could lay it down on the existing disc and just draw around it, and didn't matter how many times I measured it, it was still 5 inches across. So that was out, which led me back to that original method, marking out 3 inches on my little circle making jig, trying to line everything up, punch a new hole and drawing that in. The true challenge, and the one I wasn't expecting, was trying to find the center of the disc again. Mainly because I'd already put a dot in the center with permanent marker to cover over the pen mark. Well, not the pen mark, the pin mark. But a little bit of metho on some paper towel managed to clear it off enough to actually see it and try and put the pin back in the same spot. As you can see, I then ended up using the same method of pin in the center and a pen through a marked hole in the circle jig to draw out the disc. Alright, let's get back to the end of the video. The ultimate test, really, and I think the ultimate test, really, is that if they're all the same, they should all line up, right? So, and there you go. That's 2 on top of each other, and I'll assume they're all working the same, and I'll test at another point. But there you go, exactly the same size. So, if you enjoyed this, let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And I guess the really important thing is, if there's other things that you can think of that maybe you're not sure of, or something you'd like me to make, leave it in the comments. I can try it out. You know, these were an idea that only occurred to me because I'd seen them exist in some other form. So it'd be something cool to try again. That's it. So until next time, I'll see you later.